Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Sister Safura. Looking very energetic this afternoon. Congratulations. It's day 2 now. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome to the second plenary speech of the day and the fourth for this Congress, which addresses the theme, harm reduction, balancing between biomedical advances and Sharia from principles. Allow me to start with a few housekeeping announcements. To all participants, please make sure your microphone is on mute mode throughout the session. The plenary will be conducted over a total of 1 hour, in which it will be divided into 50 minutes of speech, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. During the Q&A session, you may unmute your mic and continue by asking your question. Once done, kindly set your mic back on mute mode immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the second plenary speech of the day is entitled The Purpose of Preserving Human Intellect, or Maqasid Hifdh from a medical health perspective. From a health medical perspective. We are deeply honored to have Professor Omar Hassan Kasule to deliver this topic this afternoon. Before I invite our respected and honorable speaker and my teacher, it is my deepest pleasure to share with all of you some background information of Prof. Omar Hassan Kasule, a shorter version. Prof. Dr. Kasule is a physician holding a doctorate in epidemiology from Harvard University, Boston, USA. His doctoral research was on the epidemiology of childhood Epstein-Barr virus infection in relation to the risk of Burkitt's lymphoma and malarial infection. He had experience of cancer epidemiology research at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Harvard Medical School, and moved to Virginia, where he was principal investigator of an NIH National Sickle Cell Screening Project. Since 1995, he held appointments as professor at faculties of medicine in Malaysia, Brunei, and Saudi Arabia. He held the appointment of Deputy Dean for Research at the International Islamic University, Malaysia from 1995 to 2005 and was overseeing the Research and the Ethics Committee. He was on the Research Committee of the University of Brunei from 2005 to 2009. Prof. Omar Hassan Kasule is currently the chairman of the Ethics Committee and the Institutional Review Board of King Fahad Medical City in Riyadh. He founded the International Medical Journal and became the first editor. Over the past 18 years, he has been teaching and presenting conference papers on clinical ethics and research ethics worldwide. He has published on ethics in journals and also on his own website. With that, I would welcome Professor Dr. Omar Hassan Kasule to deliver his speech. Welcome, Prof.
Let me see. For this introduction, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, adda al-amana wa ballagha al-risala wa nasha al-umma wa jahada fi sabilillah haqqa jihadi jazahu Allahu anna awfar al-jaza. Sisters and brothers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure for me to be with you this morning in Riyadh and this afternoon in Malaysia at this very important conference on Islamicization of knowledge, which is really the purpose of our university, which is the purpose of many of our scholars and intellectuals, how we can put together and integrate ilm naqli and ilm aqli. I am very happy that we are now having the 3rd Congress, and inshallah we shall have more and more congresses in the future. Now I will be talking about one of the purposes of the Sharia and related to the 4th industrial revolution that we are living in. Just as a reminder, you know that the Sharia has got 5 purposes. Anything we do in the Sharia must either fulfill one of these or not contradict it. The first is Hifdh al-Din, this is about religion. The second is Hifdh al-Nafs, this is about life and health. The third is Hifdh al-Nasl, this is about reproduction and the family. The fourth is Hifdh al-Akal, this is about the intellect. And the fifth is Hifdh al-Mal, about property. What we say is that the Sharia wants to preserve these great purposes, promote them, and protect them. So there is preservation, promotion, and protection. The word Hifdh carries those 3 meanings. For my talk, I will focus on Hifdh al-Aql, which is the 4th purpose of the Sharia. Now, what does the word Aql mean? Aql is in this 4th purpose of the Sharia, Hifdh al-Aql, and we need to, first of all, define what it means before we go further. Now, in my presentation, I will use the word Aql in a meaning or a context separate from its meaning when it is used in relationship to the Ruh and Nafs. When you read Quran and Sunnah, it shows that these terms are used interchangeably sometimes. Aql, Ruh, and Nafs, and there are many others that are similar. But in the present presentation, I'm going to use the term Aql different from the context in which it is used in relationship to the Ruh and to the Nafs. I want to define Aql as the faculty of humans that is very sophisticated, free, and creative. See, human intellect is very sophisticated. We have got the highest surface area of the cerebrum compared to our weight of all living things. It's free to think and it's creative. It can be innovative. So it is this Aql that distinguishes humans from other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without the Aql, our humanness is not complete. Now, researchers may disagree. Where is Aql? Where is the intellect? Some say it's in the heart, qalb, and that may not be the anatomical heart. Some say it's in the cerebral cortex. But again, for the purposes of this paper, I will say that the seat of Aql, the seat of intellect, is the human cerebral cortex. Aql is so important, as I said before, it defines our humanness. When we lose the Aql, we lose our humanness, because that's what distinguishes us from other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It also means if we lose Aql, we lose legal rights and obligations. If there is no Aql, if there is no intellect, if somebody is mad, their legal obligations, ahliyatul ada, is diminished. And also their legal rights, ahliyatul wujub, are diminished. But ahliyatul ada is diminished always, but ahliyatul wujub is diminished only in a few situations. You don't lose your rights to your property and to your life because you have a deficiency in the aql. So it's mostly ahliyatul ada that is diminished, but ahliyatul wujub, which is the legal rights, is not diminished by deficiency of the aql. Now, let us talk about how healthcare fulfills the purpose of preserving, protecting, and promoting Akal. The fourth purpose of the Sharia. The healthcare does this in three interrelated ways. The first one is physical disease. If you have got a physical disease, you've got heart failure, you've got failure of respiration, you have got pain. Medicine relieves the physical disease. Medicine relieves the physical distress because when there is this physical distress, the physiological function of the neurons, that is the nerve cells in the cerebral cortex, is affected, and your intellect cannot perform at its maximum because of the physical disease. So by treating physical disease, we actually are helping in preserving Akal, in preserving the neurons in the cerebral cortex. The second way in which medicine and healthcare help in the process of preserving, protecting, and promoting Akal, intellect, is psychological and psychiatric treatment. Human beings get disturbances in their emotions, in their feelings, and in their drives. So these emotional problems or psychological problems, psychiatric problems, are treatable by medicine. They may be treated with drugs, or they may be treated by psychotherapy. Now, when medicine treats these psychological, psychiatric problems, it is restoring the emotional balance, and it's restoring the intellectual functioning of the person. Because if someone is very depressed, they cannot think straight. They cannot think in a balanced way. They cannot think properly. So when we treat the depression, we are restoring the intellectual function. When somebody is in a high state of anxiety, they cannot think well. They cannot function intellectually properly. So medicine, by treating anxiety, is restoring this intellectual function. The third way in which medicine and healthcare help in protecting, preserving, and promoting Akal, or the intellect, is treating addictions. Because addictions impair intellectual function and they disturb the emotional balance. Human beings have got a tendency to be addicted to things. Alcohol is an addiction. Drugs are an addiction. But there's also other things that we can get addicted to. We may get addicted to power and authority. We may get addicted to music. Anything that takes away your freedom to make decisions on your own, and you are forced to do things maybe that you wouldn't do if you thought properly, is an addiction, and it is affecting your Akal. For example, alcohol. The Prophet defined alcohol, khamr, al-khamru ma khamar al-aql. Khamr is what disturbs the functioning of the mind. So anything that disturbs the functioning of the mind is affecting Akal, is affecting intellectual functioning. So everything that we do to treat addictions is protecting, preserving, and promoting intellect, or Akal. And it is this third medical approach to protecting Akal that will lead us into discussion of Hifdh al-Akal in the fourth industrial revolution. Now, let me first revise that we've had three industrial revolutions so far. Now we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution has to do with the computer-based automation. Now, many things now are done automatically by the computer. And there is a lot of things are done by artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial intelligence is taking over a lot of the intellectual functions that humans used to have. Now, this fourth industrial revolution is a natural successor to three revolutions that came before it. Let us remind ourselves that the first industrial revolution was about machines. Machines replaced muscles. Before, we used to use our human muscles to work. Then we developed machines. We used to use horses to do agriculture for us. We used to use cows to farm. Now we have got a tractor. So the first industrial revolution was when machines replaced muscles, human muscles or animal muscles. The second industrial revolution was when science, technology, and mass production came into being. A lot of the high technology we have today was part of this second industrial revolution. But over the past 30 years or so, we have undergone a third industrial revolution. But this one is a digital revolution. More reliance on the computer and computing, and most developments today are computer-based, internet-based. So that is the third industrial revolution. Now, arising out of the third industrial revolution is the fourth industrial revolution that I'm going to talk more about in relationship to Hifdh al-Akal. Now, the fourth industrial revolution is actually an extension of the digital revolution I talked about. And it's characterized by this artificial intelligence that computers can be programmed to see things, make observations, analyze situations, and make decisions, and maybe take action. In a way, they are taking over part of the work that the human intellect used to do before. Before, doctors would sit in their office and the patient would come in. They collect information by talking to the patient, by examining the patient, and by taking images and laboratory investigations. They collect all of this information in their mind, analyze it, and decide what the diagnosis is, and then decide what the treatment is. But now with artificial intelligence, computer-aided diagnosis has become a reality, that actually the computer collects that clinical and information and laboratory information, imaging information, analyzes it, and can tell the doctor what are the probable diagnoses. So in this way, you can see that part of the human intellect's function is being taken over. Now, this artificial intelligence produces services and it produces products. A lot of times now, these days, when you have got a problem with your electricity, with your water, when you call, no human talks to you. A computer talks to you and you respond to it until the problem is solved. Now, that's very good, but there is a problem that this artificial intelligence is increasingly becoming independent of the human akal. It can do things on its own. There are people who even think that eventually the world may be run by the machines. The other problem is marginalization of the human akal, because now we don't use it. Many of its functions are being done by the computer. It is becoming marginalized. And as you know, what is not used atrophies or disappears. Now, in the past, also Akal was marginalized. But the marginalization in the past was alcohol. When somebody took alcohol, khamar, al-khamru ma khamar al-aql, his mind would be out of function. It's marginalized. It's not there. Cannot use it, cannot think. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, al-khamru ummul kaba'ir, that alcohol is the mother of all evils, because without the human intellect, you are not able to distinguish right from wrong. So in the past, the human intellect was marginalized by alcohol. It was marginalized by drugs. I'm sorry, I'm saying in the past, even now, it still is marginalized. Drugs, taking drugs, marginalize and knock out the human intellect. But sometimes music. Some of the young people, when listening to music, cannot think. Sometimes they miss their food. Football also can marginalize this. Wealth, as people search for money, they become so addicted to looking for money that their mind is marginalized. Even sex can be an addiction. So anything that is addictive takes away the ability of the person to make independent decisions. When someone is addicted to drugs, all they want is to get the drugs. They will do anything to get the drugs. They will not think. They will not analyze. So this is the danger of addiction. So the problem is that in the fourth industrial revolution, we are becoming so dependent on artificial intelligence. We are becoming so dependent on the computers and also the social media. We are so dependent to the level of being addicted that many people now cannot do without them. And actually, there is a new syndrome now, which is social media syndrome, people getting ill because they spend hours and hours on the social media. So the social media and artificial intelligence are now the new agents of social engineering. They control society, they manage society, they change society, they condition society. And what is happening is that the human is becoming an automaton, you see, because now many things that you do, you don't really have to think about them. Someone thinks about the details for you. You just push a button and things happen, but you do not think independently about what is happening. It means you're being controlled. So you are losing self-control. You are losing independence. I don't say this is all bad, because the new technology enables us to get things done faster and more effectively. But what I say is that the role of the Akal is decreasing. So then we become fully dependent on goods and services produced through artificial intelligence. We are fully dependent on them, but we have no control. So I think that this situation has led us to now an ominous new definition for addiction. You see, internet addiction is a real addiction, and it's an ominous one. Now, our challenge is, how shall we be able to have Hifdh al-Aql? How shall we protect, preserve, and promote human Akal with this new addiction that is happening? How shall we handle this new addictive state to make sure that it does not destroy society? There is even another angle to this. Now, behind all the programming, all the coding, behind all the social media, there are people who control these things, because these things end up controlling us through making us addicted to them. The people who make them will end up controlling us. So we lose our independence. So this is something ominous. And I think as Muslims, we need to think seriously about it. Now, I want to end by asking some serious questions. How can we preserve Akal? Akal, as you remember, is the fourth purpose of the Sharia. We need to preserve it. The Sharia gave us guidelines on preserving Akal from addictions of alcohol and drugs and other causes of addiction. We have got good guidelines. But what about the new addiction? How can we beat the internet addiction? Because our young people are on the internet all the time. Families no longer interact because the father is on his telephone, the mother is on her telephone, the children are on their telephone. They are in the same house, but they are not together. Each one is in a different virtual world. And it's an addiction, actually. One of the biggest causes of stress these days is losing a telephone. I've seen people, when they lose their telephone, they don't settle down until they find to buy a new one. It's like they cannot do with the telephone. Or if they forget their telephone at home, they will drive home to get it. They cannot say, okay, let me stay without it for a day. They cannot. This is real addiction. So how can we beat this addiction? Because as you know, any addiction takes over the human intellect, and the human will lose in the end. Now, we ask another question. What can we do to benefit from technology? I want to emphasize that all the modern technology is very useful. See, we cannot throw it away. But how can we benefit from it, but still preserve our independence to think and act independently? Because it is this ability to think and act independently that defines us as humans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the human mind with the ability to distinguish right from wrong. As Quran says, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. So we have got this ability, and whenever the intellect is marginalized, whenever the intellect is not used, then we are losing something. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his kindness, although he gave us the ability to tell right from wrong, still he does not punish us when our mind, when our akal makes a mistake. He punishes us only if we do not follow the teachings that came through the prophets, ar-rusul. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Now, I want to ask another question. You see, the programs that run our lives today, that run the internet and all the systems, are written by a few people. Who are these people? Where are they? Are they good people? Could they be bad people? Could they write programs that change society, that destroy society, that destroy morality? Yes, they can. They can. Now, if these people can attain complete control of our lives and our minds, and if they are not good, then we're in trouble. If they are good, alhamdulillah. But if they don't have good moral moorings and moral guidelines, then we could be in a lot of trouble, because a lot of us use the internet, use the computer, use artificial intelligence, but we do not write the programs. We just are consumers. We are not producers. So the few who produce are very powerful people who can change the world, and Allah knows where they will take the world. There's also another question that I want to ask. What about technology collapse? Because one day something may go wrong with this technology. And all of you know this very well. When we are young in Malaysia and other parts of the world, we didn't have air conditioning in our cars. I don't remember being uncomfortable because there's no air conditioning in the car or in the house. Now, after being addicted to air conditioning, if I don't have it for a few minutes, I am disturbed, I am distressed, I cannot function. It doesn't mean that I absolutely must have it. All it means that I became addicted to it. So this is what happens. The technology, once we get addicted to it, if one day it disappears, it collapses, it's not available, shall we be able to go back and use our Akal and our thinking and the working patterns prior to the fourth industrial revolution? This is the big question. After being addicted, after becoming so dependent on the new technology, and after spending so much time without using our mind to the fullest, because many of the mechanical functions that the brain used to do are now done by machines. Suppose that technology disappears one day. Shall we be able to survive? That's a question. Now, the technology may not actually disappear. Someone may withdraw it from you. Someone may decide that, okay, this specific country, I don't like what you are doing. I'm going to take away the technology. So, if they take away the technology, will we be able to overcome the addiction to that technology and go back to our natural Akal and be able to function? That's a question. I don't know the answer. I've raised some questions and I don't have the answers to them, but I think I will start you thinking, and maybe in the discussion, some of you are very smart, much smarter than I am. I am an old man, not so much smart now. You know, you are smartest when you are about 25 to 35. Maybe some people in the audience can give us answers to these questions. The important thing is Hifdh al-Aql, protection, preservation, and promotion of the human intellect is one of the 5 purposes of the Sharia. And if we cannot fulfill that purpose under the 4th industrial revolution, or even after it, our society as Muslims or as humans will be in trouble. So I will stop here, inshallah, and we can have further discussions of these matters. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Omar Hassan Kasule. We'll be inviting any questions from the participants. And before that, may I just, probably, Prof, if it's okay to just ask your opinion on this matter. Right, we used to say, think before you speak. Nowadays, people don't speak anymore, they just use social media. So probably we should change that to think before you click, right? So we know that a lot of information is exchanged through WhatsApp, through Telegram, through Facebook. And some of those information are useful information and some are not useful information. My question is, I would like your opinion, is it high time that misusers or abusers, those who are addicted to social media and sharing information, they be corrected legally by authority?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. I can answer the first part of the question. The second part, I'm not sure about the answer. There is too much information actually coming through the social media, too much information on the internet. And I think it is beyond the ability of the human mind to digest and analyze that information, especially since a lot of it is actually wrong. So you have to start by distinguishing what's right from what's wrong, and then you need to absorb, internalize, digest, and analyze what is right. The human mind has got a limit to how much information it can deal with. And that's why the computer is powerful, because the computer's capacity to analyze information is much higher than the human being. Maybe that statement needs qualification. Some people say the human brain actually can do much more than it is doing now. We just don't use it enough. Anyway, so too much information overwhelms people. And I think they do not have the leisure we used to have a long time ago to think about things, sleep over them, analyze them, think about implications, reach a conclusion, then speak or take action. Too much information, and then your responses are needed very quickly. It's the way things work. Something you need to click. So I think the way we are getting information and analyzing it now is not right. But whether we need to use legal means to improve the situation, I'm not sure about that.
Thank you very much, Prof. Any sharing or discussion from members of the floor?
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Omar Fauzan here. I want to ask questions about the Akal in the Qalbun Salim. In your presentation, you show more on the brain part. But I wish that if we can connect to Qalbun Salim, then the decision that we're going to make, like addition and so on, is being embedded with Iman and Taqwa. How we can, because normally we regard the heart is as a physical, but yesterday discussion with Prof. Omar Hassan that heart is not only physical part, but also have spiritual part. So I want to connect with your Maqasid Sharia, Hifdh Akal just now. For me, if I just give your opinion, if you agree or not, if we can connect with Qalbun, heart, that we have spiritual brain, spiritual intellect, we can protect better our Hifdh Akal, and furthermore, we can protect our nasal, dignity. With this approach, we can do better in facing the sophisticated or artificial intelligence, IR 4.0, and social media. I want to ask your opinion. Thank you, Prof. Omar.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Fauzan, for this observation. It brings me back to what I said at the beginning, because I made a disclaimer from the beginning that for purposes of this presentation, I use the term Akal separate from the closely related concepts of Ruh and Nafs. In other words, I used Akal in the purely material sense for purposes of this presentation in order to relate it to the technology. But I'm aware of Aqal's relationship to the Ruh and Nafs and Qalb, but I did not want to go into that because the presentation would have been much bigger. So I purposely limited the presentation to the material part of Aqal. But it's true, once we are addicted to internet, to AI, we may need spiritual approaches. We may need Qalbun Salim to be able to get out of the addiction.
Sorry, I have to add here, Prof. Omar. I really like to use like fasting, Ramadan. We fast from the thing that harus, like eating and drinking and so on. So I used to suggest to my students and others, why don't you fast social media like Facebook, or like during like last 10 days Ramadan, we fast, do not engage yourself in Facebook, or someone can fast doing in certain social media for 2 years. So fasting is the one that can strengthen our qalbun and can strengthen our mind. That's why I want really to link the akal here with the brain and the heart, and the result of taqwa during Ramadan can help us to control the technology. End of the day is the hardware in peopleware that control hardware and software. Allahu Alam.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah. That's very good. That's a very good observation. As I said, I want people to help answer the questions I raised at the end of my presentation. How do we overcome this addiction? Jazakallah khair.
We have a question from Sister Noor Shamimi from IIUM. She asked, in regards to Al-Akal being the seat of knowledge, can we consider seeking right and true knowledge and consulting authoritative scholars as among the ways to realize the preservation of Al-Akal, especially in this age of social media where false information is often disguised and misconceived as knowledge? Please, Prof.
Yeah, Allah jazakallah khair. Now, I agree with you. We need to ask Ahlul Dhikr, we need to ask the scholars, we need to ask those who know. In kuntum la ta'lamun. So, but now, who are the scholars? Because the scholars of Sharia must also be scholars of information technology. So we need a new breed of scholars who understand Maqasid Sharia from the context of this technology in order to be able to give us good answers. I just want to say that a scholar has got ilm, knowledge. Now, the Islamic definition of knowledge means only correct knowledge. Al-ilm, al-jahl. If something is false, it's not knowledge. The problem is that the knowledge we get from the internet and from the social media, a lot of it is false. Even those who put it there know it is false. It's not by mistake. They deliberately put false information there. So it's a challenge dealing with this type of knowledge.
Thank you very much, Prof. Any other questions or comments from the floor?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Prof. Omar, I just want, because you mentioned about the limit of akal, of our intelligence. So there's a saying that you know the level of your knowledge, but you never know your level of ignorance.
Yes.
Something like that. So maybe you can advise us what is not to use akal, which means what the boundaries of akal, especially in health and medical perspective or in any others. What is the boundary and the limits and what should not be done? Thank you.
Okay. Allah Jazak Khair. You're actually asking me to give you my life biography, because all my life I've been working on this issue of Akal and Naqal. Ilm Naqli is transmitted knowledge in Quran and Sunnah, and Ilm Aqli is empirical knowledge or rational knowledge. As a Muslim, we are supposed to know how to integrate the two sources of knowledge. Now, so far, our education systems have not been able to achieve this integration in a major way. Alhamdulillah, IIUM and other universities of a similar nature are doing a lot of work. Prof. Kamal Hassan and this conference are also attempts in this area of integrating ilm aqli and ilm naqli. So I think in the end, this is going to be the solution, and this may also be the solution of the problems posed by the information technology to society, that we shall go into ilm naqli to gauge the moral dimensions, to gauge the spiritual dimensions that can help us overcome the problems that we are facing.
Thank you very much, Prof. Are there any other questions? I understand that Prof. Omar has a meeting at in 10 minutes time over in Riyadh. So yes. Any other questions or comments, final ones?
Yeah, in 15 minutes, I have another session to do. Yes.
All right. So, okay, if there's no other questions or comments, I would like to thank Prof. Omar Hassan Kasule for your insights into one of the most important topics in this modern era. On behalf of everybody here, I would like to say thank you again. Jazakumullah, Prof. Barakallahu fiqh. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you, Prof.
Alhamdulillah.
Back to you, Sister Safura.